Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Williams, and I'm with my tag team partner, Blake Castetter, and we are the Sunday Fun Day guys. Blake, a lot of things going on this weekend. We got Mike Tyson fighting tonight,
That's right.
right? Yeah, we got Tyson. We got John Bones Jones fighting, and then we got a little bit of college football action, and then we got some great pro games on Sunday.
We
A lot of
do.
stuff going on.
On that
Yes.
Tyson fight, man, the memes are killer. I At first it was like, is it scripted? Is it not scripted? And then there's so many that are like, he's too brain dead to follow a script.
When does he ever follow the script?
And then
Except in The Hangover.
there's some good ones with showing the reaction when Jake Paul realizes that he's not following the script.
Well, we got a lot of action going on this weekend, and we got a lot of things to cover. This is probably segment 2.0 because we had some technical difficulties in segment 1.0. But week 11 already coming up. We got a lot of good matchups in fantasy, playoff positioning, big time, trade deadline this week. Give me some tidbits going into this week, Blake.
So what we saw in week 10 that stood out, Jamar Chase went absolutely nuclear, 11, 264, and 3. The only player to ever have 2 games with over 260 yards receiving. He is that guy.
Yeah, he definitely that guy. Oh, by the way, Bengals front office, you probably should pay him now. I think he's earned that right. What do you think? You think so, Blake?
He's getting paid.
Yeah, gotcha.
MVS stepped up in the absence of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. That was a big one. I don't know if I believe in him, if that's fool's gold or chasing points or what, but Audric Estime led the Broncos backfield in touches, 14 carries, 53 yards. Sean Payton was quoted as saying, the rookie will continue to get more reps. So it sounds like he might be leading the way this week. And then out in Charger land, you got the Gus Bus return for 10 carries for 50 yards. But I got a question for you. So I've got Tajay Spears. Estime and the Gus Bus are both sitting on my waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want?
Well, ironically enough, I had Tajay Spears. Notice I said had. I put in a claim on the Gus Bus and I got him. So I am all in on the Gus Bus and Estime. Spears, I guess because I drafted him and thought he would be better. And I hung on to him. I gave him a long leash, which I never do in fantasy. And I think it was too long. So I cut bait, and then we'll see what happens with Gus Bus or Estime.
So you picked up both of them?
Well, I picked up one in one league and one in the other, but I had Spears in two out of my 4 leagues just because, as we talked about in the beginning of the year, we didn't know how that back wheel was going to shake out, and obviously it did not shake out the way I thought it was going to shake out. So I went in another direction.
Right. Yep. Investing in split backfields. I like that approach. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out in your favor.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I still got to make a choice in my league of record as to estimate Gus Bus or Spears.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in terms of carries or touches. It's just like anything else. I think we got to give it a little bit of a sample size, a couple weeks at least. If all 3 of them are getting 10 plus, or 2 of them are getting 10 plus carries, or 3 of them, then you have to consider which one is in an offense that you think is going to be more consistent,
And look at matchups.
Correct. Always look at matchups.
So there were some injuries that stood out. You've got Dak confirmed out for the season, going to have hamstring surgery. Trevor Lawrence is already ruled out for week 11. And as of a couple hours ago, Sam Laporta also ruled out for week 11. Heading into week 11, though, some headlines you need to know. Anthony Richardson's back in the starting spot, running the show in Indy, which, that's that head coach is.
He's between a rock and a hard place. He is. Like, he's damned if he does, and damned if he doesn't. If he plays the old quarterback, management's not going to like it, but the team's going to like it. If he plays the new quarterback, management's going to like it, but the team may not like it because they may not win. I would not want to be in his shoes.
No. Another quarterback change. You got Minshew announced as the starter in Vegas. In Chicago, Shane Waldron's out. Thomas Brown, the former passing coordinator, has been promoted to OC, interim OC. And then we got two players returning in Isaiah Pacheco and Nico Collins. How do you feel that? So if you had Kareem Hunt and you had Pacheco, what are you doing in that backfield?
Ooh, that's a tough one. The way Kansas City's offense is built now, I can see that being more of a split backfield, kind of like the ones we've talked about early in the season. Whereas before, Pacheco was the end all be all. But I see that being a split backfield just because keeping guys fresh and healthy. And Pacheco's just coming back, so they're not going to throw him in to the fire that much. But I think maybe 3 or 4 games down the line, you'll see a split backfield. And for the Chiefs, man, that bodes really good for them.
It does. How do you take away? I mean, Hunt's been on fire. And
Yeah.
what Hunt has done, and it's no knock on Hunt, but that just shows how valuable that running back position is, in fact, in the Chiefs offense.
Correct.
If it's just
Correct.
one
No
running
question.
back, that's one you want to own moving forward for sure.
Yep, I agree.
Let's see. Last note. Teams on bye heading into this week. You got the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Bucks, and the Giants. You mentioned earlier playoffs. And so a segment that we put together going into this episode was a playoff thing. It's time to start planning. Looking ahead to matchups, looking at who's got weak spots, considering adding depth and letting go of those players that might not have shown up like you thought they were. On that note, when you took a flyer on somebody in the draft, round 17, and if they haven't panned out yet, you know who they are and who they aren't, if they're going to be performers or not performers. Instead of wasting a spot on that player that you're hoping is going to someday turn into something, consider dropping him and adding depth, whether it be a handcuff to your running back, a handcuff to another running back, or if you've got a player that's dealt with injuries throughout the season, look at handcuffing him at wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, etc.
Agreed.
Also, you want to start reviewing your current roster's upcoming schedule. So one thing that I like to do as we plan for playoffs and you're looking at that last week of trades and opportunities to acquire other players, your starting roster, where are the weak spots? Or what week is there going to be a weak spot? So like for me, for example, I've got Jaden Daniels, week 14, I need a solid fill-in. Now I'm Brock Purdy, I'm happy with his position, but if Jaden Daniels has some tough matchups, not necessarily bye weeks, but tough matchups like last night, maybe you don't want to play him. You need to find somebody that's got an easier matchup, whether that's a trade or leveraging the waiver wire to fill that spot.
Yeah, especially for quarterbacks, you're still going to find some decent quarterbacks on the waiver wire, just because it's quarterbacks. You're only starting one, you keep one more maybe. So at that position, a lot easier to find that kind of 1 week wonder,
Streamer.
as opposed to a running back or a wide receiver, even tight end. You can potentially get lucky, but running backs and wide receivers at this point in the game, as you said, you are who you are, and you know what they're going to produce, and there could be an outlier here and there, but you know what guys are going to give you consistently, i.e. Saquon Barkley. We know what he's going to do on a consistent basis like he did last night.
He went off. Speaking of finding a sneaky weak waiver wire play, I bet Dawson Knox is out there on some waiver wires.
Yep.
And Dalton Kincaid has also been ruled out. Last week when Dalton Kincaid went down, Dawson Knox saw his highest target percentage and receptions of the year. I don't know that he's going to be a big yardage and or reception guy from a numbers perspective, but he is trusted in the red zone. Yep, and with Amari Cooper being banged up, might be opportunities.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along the lines with Sam Laporta. So what does Detroit do? Do they, now that Jameson Williams is back, more 3, 4, 5 wide receiver sets and Laporta's not in? Do Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery get some play in the passing game? So those two positions in terms of Buffalo and Detroit, with their top tight ends being out are going to be interesting to see how they fill those roles with the players they have on the team already.
So heading into the playoff time frame, we started looking ahead and we identified a couple teams that have advantageous playoff schedules. You want to run through some of those for them, Jason?
Yes, yeah. We'll start out with the Arizona Cardinals. Week 15 and 16, they played the Patriots and the Panthers. Week 17 is a rematch with the Rams, who they beat pretty good, 41-10 in week 2. So we're talking James Conner in his handcuff, Benson. We're talking Arizona defense potentially against the Pats and the Panthers, whose one has a rookie quarterback and essentially the other one has a rookie quarterback, if you want to talk about the Panthers. So definitely Arizona Cards, another team, one team to keep an eye on. The next team are the Bucks, Tampa Bay. Weeks 16 and 17, they get Dallas at home, and then the Panthers. You got Bucky Irving, you got Rashard White, you got Cade Otton, and you got the Tampa Bay defense, who's been hit or miss this year. So another team you want to keep an eye on as you get closer to the playoffs in that playoff run. The next team is the Cowboys. The Cowboys have the Panthers, the Buccaneers, and the Eagles in weeks 15 through 17. Now, how does CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson perform? It's really hard to tell with the Cowboys because their quarterback play is so inconsistent. So, again, anytime you have an inconsistent quarterback, you're going to have inconsistent skill players, but at least something to keep an eye on when it comes to CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson. The last two teams, Raiders, they're at home against the Falcons and the Jags, and then New Orleans for week 17. You got stud tight end Brock Bowers, and then you probably a flex in Jacoby Myers. So, again, two players for the Raiders to keep an eye on. And lastly, you got the Carolina Panthers. They're at home versus Dallas in Arizona, and then at Tampa Bay, week 17. Chuba Hubbard, who, in my opinion, has been probably the surprise of the year, one of the surprises of the year, and not the surprise in terms of his point production in fantasy. And Xavier Legette may be, again, one of those wide receivers that are going to get a lot of touches because of the situation Carolina's in. So those are the 5 teams that you want to keep an eye on as you get close and into your fantasy playoff season.
Yeah, and I like how you put that together, Jason. What you did well, from my perspective here, is every single person you listed off, these are all players that before the trade deadline are reasonably obtainable. They aren't going to cost you everything. CeeDee Lamb, I mean, I think rest of the season, he's like wide receiver 24. So while he has name value, he's not going to be putting up big numbers. So these are players that you could go out and obtain. Brock Bowers, a top tight end. Yeah, he might cost a little more, but Tampa Bay's defense, they should be on the waiver wire. Arizona's defense, probably on the waiver wire. Benson shouldn't cost you much. He hasn't been very involved. Ferguson, same deal. Jacoby Myers, Xavier Legette shouldn't cost you much. Chuba Hubbard might be a little bit expensive, but Jonathan Brooks, I mean, when we go back to what we were talking about earlier, handcuffing a running back that has an easy playoff schedule, that's a strategy.
Yep.
And on that same note, some players that might be available on waiver wires that aren't your starters, but do have advantageous schedules coming up. So all of this information is according to fftoolbox.com. So at the QB position, you've got Russell Wilson. He's got the number 3 easiest playoff schedule, assuming weeks 15 through 17. He's got the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. Then you got Derek Carr with the number 4 easiest schedule, Washington, Green Bay, and the Raiders. Both of those players very well may be out on your waiver wire right now, and it might be a good idea to go out and scoop them up and hold on to one of them for just a 1-week, 2-week play. From the running back perspective, you're not going to find any starters like you would the quarterback, but the Jets, they have the easiest schedule for running backs. Number 1, they've got the Jaguars, the Rams, and the Bills. And you might be able to go out and acquire Braylon Allen for pennies on the dollar at this point because he's not getting the carries that he was, but another handcuff opportunity. Atlanta, number 2, with Tyler Algier. He's been very involved. He's got the Raiders, the Giants, and the Commanders. And then the Chargers. They've got the 6th easiest playoff schedule. Gus Edwards, he might, like we talked about, might be out there on the waiver wire right now. He's got Tampa Bay, Denver, and New England. And from the wide receiver, you've got Chicago, number one easiest schedule in fantasy playoffs. Keenan Allen might be out on waiver wires. He surely isn't going to cost you very much. But if Odunze or DJ Moore goes down, that's just going to increase the targets for Keenan Allen. The Giants have the second easiest schedule. Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and then San Francisco has the sixth easiest schedule, and you got Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall out there. So just a list of players you might be able to obtain for a low cost or possibly off waiver wires with easy fantasy playoff schedules.
Yeah, Fanatics, I hope you're listening because Blake just gave you some serious information right there as you go into the fantasy players. These are guys that you may be able to either trade for low value or even get off the waiver wire. So again, take note of that as you're trying to prepare for the fantasy playoffs. Again, injuries do happen on a week-to-week basis. You never know. And these guys could be comparable or even solid starters on a fantasy team leading or going into the playoffs and leading you into the playoffs.
I tell you what, I just answered my own question. I'm going to go pick up Gus Edwards for Tajay Spears, that number 6 easiest schedule. If I'm going to have a backup, let's get one that might do something for me in the playoffs.
Yeah, no question. I think that's why I got it. I mean, you got to look at the offense. Like, what are we talking? What did the Chargers love to do more than any team is run the ball? So Gus made even more sense than Denver's running back, just for the simple fact I know Gus Edwards is going to get carried if he's healthy and he's got fresh legs. Harbaugh's going to give him the ball, no question.
Yep. All right, let's dive into our start and sits of the week for week 11.
We agree on our start of the week.
Saw that.
Yeah. I think this was the easy one. If you ask me, I'll go first because I'll just give you kind of my gut feel. And we'll let you pepper everybody with the stats. So my start of the week is none other than Russell Wilson. In the beginning of the year, and no way Russ would be started because how well Justin Fields did. Mike Tomlin, the genius coach he is, will be a Hall of Fame coach at some point, pulled the trigger, inserted Russ. And everybody outside of the building, even inside of the building, didn't think this was a good idea. Well, the Steelers are rolling, as much as I hate to say it. And if they beat the Ravens, you can honestly say they are probably the best competition for the Chiefs in terms of unseating Kansas City for the championship. So why not start Russ against the Ravens? Terrible secondary and defense. Folks, go ahead and let Russ cook because he's cooking the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and just to add on to what you've already said, Jason, he's only had 3 starts, but in each one of those starts, he's had 275 yards or multiple touchdown passes. The over-under on the game is 48.5 points. The Ravens are favored by 3, which makes the Steelers have an implied team total of 22.75 points. And while the Ravens have a stout run defense, if the Steelers are going to want to keep up, it's going to have to be through the air and all led by Russell Wilson.
No question. I mean, if anybody saw last Thursday night's game, it was a great game and it was a shootout. So I expect the same. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be on par or as close as the Bengals-Ravens game was last Thursday. I think both teams have solid offenses. Obviously, the Steelers' defense is better than both the Bengals and Ravens. But, again, when you got Lamar Jackson, it changes the game. But as we both said, time to let Russ cook this week and start him with confidence.
Yes, I was going to say I feel comfortable starting him for sure.
Yep.
I noticed you changed your sit of the week because we're already past our the Thursday game, so we got to add some value.
Yep, I did. I will tell you who my original one was. It was Jalen Daniels. And, he had I would say, below average game for him, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was that great. So that was my sit of the week. But this week I'm going with Bo Nix. I was looking at the rankings and something stood out to me, Blake. And I saw Bo Nix was ranked the 7th best QB this week in terms of fantasy. And he's ahead of guys like Herbert, Wilson, Mahomes, and Stroud. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Am I missing something? Listen, folks, get that Bo Nix is going against an Atlanta defense that's not great, and he's at home, and he's been playing well. But you can't tell me he had some of these all-stars, pro bowlers, all pros. I'm not buying it. This week, I'm sitting Bo Nix, one, because I think he's ranked too high, and another thing, he's a rookie. So you're going to have ebb and flows with rookies, ups and downs. He's been great, but invariably you're going to have that roller coaster ride with a rookie. So this week, I am sitting Bo Nix.
He has added some serious value on the ground, though, and that's something that offers a nice floor regardless of who he's playing.
Agreed.
My sit of the week is Patrick Mahomes. He had solid outings in back-to-back weeks leading up to week 11, going against Las Vegas and Tampa Bay. But when he went into week 10 with Denver, he only scored 18.5 points. And this week he's facing a well-known rival and a similarly good pass defense in the Bills. And I see another outing like week 10 and week 11 with Mahomes. I mean, the Bills have the 7th ranked defense against the pass, and they've allowed the 8th fewest points to the quarterback position. So if you've got another option besides Mahomes, I would heavily consider starting them.
See, conventional wisdom would say, Blake, you're 100% right. But this is kind of a big game. And we know what Patrick Mahomes does in big games. And we know what Patrick Mahomes does to the Buffalo Bills. So while I understand why you would sit him, I will disagree with this one. I think you play Mahomes. I don't think you sit him just because of the nature of the game, the familiarity with the team, and honestly, just him being Mahomes.
I think Kansas City is going to run the ball. Buffalo's run defense is subpar at best.
Yep.
Their whole defense is built around stopping the pass and eliminating big plays and giving up plays in the ground.
Yep. It's going to be a great game. Regardless,
might be a Pacheco Hunt 1-2 punch.
Yeah, is Pacheco is he playing? Do we know that?
I don't know if it's been announced yet or not, but he's back.
Okay. Well, yep. But Hunt will definitely do well, no question.
Yeah, he's a start for sure.
Yep. On to the running backs. Yes. On to the running backs.
If they were both playing, would you start both of them? Kind of like you're doing here with Detroit's backfield?
I would.
Yeah.
I have with Detroit, I've started Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown in some weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I did, and the one time they both had great games. So Blake leads me right into my running back start of the week. It's not just a start, it's a starts. I am starting Detroit's entire backfield. Folks, do you love the game Sonic the Hedgehog? If you do, this was for you. So in Detroit, there is a nickname for the Detroit backfield. We got Sonic, who is Jahmyr Gibbs, and we got Knuckles, who is David Montgomery, who's actually from Cincinnati. Shout out to D. Montgomery, Cincinnati kid, played at Mount Healthy. Against Jacksonville's defense, which quite honestly is not very good. I expect big games from both of them, and I would expect both of them to top 100 yards total, rushing and receiving this week.
Game script says maybe, because if it doesn't take long for Detroit to get up big, then they're going to feed Montgomery. Mm-hmm. But if it's, a first half of Gibbs and a second half of Montgomery, it's fascinating. I think I saw they each have 122 carries, was it? They have identical carries.
Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy. No,
they are a heavy, awesome 1-2 punch.
That
All right, so we'll just keep on going. Having a little technical difficulties with Jason right now. Hopefully he can jump back in. My start of the week this week at the running back position is none other than Joe Mixon. So I don't know why the Texans went away from using Mixon in the second half of Week 10 against the Lions. I knew he still ended up with 24 carries, but man, he was killing it on the ground. And then they stopped using him. They used him a lot less in the second half. I think this week he's going to have a big bounce back game against the Cowboys' run defense. Not only is their run defense bad, they also allow the second most points to the running back position with an average of 21.3 points per game, only trailing Carolina. I see a top 3 finish in Mixon's future this week.
Well, you know how I feel about Joe. I mean, Joe's the guy. Joe's the man. Again, I hated when he left Cincinnati. I sound like a broken record, but it's Houston's game, and Houston's been able to lean on him a lot. Now they get the receiving core back, so to speak, so they should be in better shape. And I would think that would open up some more holes for Joe because he was struggling a little bit because they were ganging up on the run. I think now that Nico's back, you got Tank Dell, you got Minchie, you got some of his weapons back, meaning CJ Stroud. I think Joe starts to cook again.
He's going to have a big week.
Yeah. Yep. No question.
Who you sitting this week, Jason?
Who am I sitting this week? Well, Blake, I am sitting Jonathan Taylor. And the reason is because Anthony Richardson is starting. So I thought this was an easy one too. Anthony Richardson, start, sit all your Colts. Anthony Richardson, bench, fire him up. So again, they're playing a Jets defense that has not been on par with where they used to be. But again, Anthony Richardson is starting after 2 or 3 weeks being on the bench. I think the Jets stop the run, make Anthony Richardson try to go against that great secondary. And I don't see a lot of running lanes for Jonathan Taylor this week.
Yep. Mr. Inconsistent himself.
No question.
My sit of the week, though, man, he's just been a dud this entire year, but he's got an opportunity, and I'm not sure that it's worth the risk, is Travis Etienne. He's back. He's healthy-ish, but Bigsby's banged up, and he might even miss the game. But if you look at what Etienne did with his extra usage in Week 10, it was not good. And this week he's got the Lions defense, which is ranked 6th in run defense, and they've allowed the 6th fewest points to the running back position. Trevor Lawrence is already ruled out, which means we got another Mac Jones start, and the Lions aren't going to have to do much to beat them. They're just going to load or make them beat them through the air and load the box.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with Jonathan Taylor. Like Travis Etienne. I mean, you're going against quarterbacks that are whatever, and you're going against defenses that know if we stop the run, we're going to have a great chance to win. And I think both Detroit and the Jets know they need to stop these running backs and make these quarterbacks try to beat them in the pass.
One team that's going to struggle to stop the pass is the Seahawks this week.
We agree again, so to speak. Yeah, we're on the 49ers train. We were on the Russ Wilson Cook train. Now we're on the 49ers wide receiver train. So, Blake, who's your start this week at wide receiver?
Juwan Jennings. He's played 5 games, and he's only seen less than a 19% target share one time. Last week against Tampa Bay, he drew a 32% target share. That's elite level volume. This week, another friendly matchup against Seattle. Not quite Tampa Bay friendly, but Seattle struggles to stop the pass. They've allowed the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. He will be most likely sharing a bit more target share with CMC, having another week under his belt, but he's a safe wide receiver 3 with a wide receiver 2 upside.
I agree. You know what? I had Juwan Jennings on my team for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then he got hurt, and then I had to make some adjustments. But it's safe to say that when he's back, Purdy looks for him, and he's a sneaky play. No question.
Yeah. And the news just broke about an hour and a half ago that Kittle is questionable now.
That's big. That is big. Well, we'll get to Kittle in a little bit. I might have to, again, do some adjusting on my on the fly this week. My start of the week is another wide receiver for San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, another Seahawks killer. In the first outing this year against the Seahawks, came up with had the best fantasy points performance of the year with 20.7 points. I expect a similar output against a not so good Seahawks secondary. So clearly, we don't think the secondary for the Seahawks is good at all.
No, they're not
Yeah,
good. They do
yeah,
decent stop in the run, but their pass defense is not good.
yeah, yeah. So what we're saying, probably start all your Niners. If you got them, start them all.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
What about
Okay.
sitting?
Oh, this again another easy one. CD Lamb, Cooper Rush, quarterback. I even with Houston's poor secondary, Dallas is a train wreck. They've been a train wreck, and it doesn't change this week. Again, another receiver that was ranked high. Obviously, his quarterback is hurt, and they haven't had the success that they thought they were. But I would have to sit CeeDee Lamb. If you start him, and most people will, and I get that, you really have to temper your expectations with him.
Yeah, I mean, I had higher hopes for him going into last week because I had read some stats on his experience in games with Cooper Rush and the kind of volume that he saw, and it wasn't significant, but I mean, he was averaging like 6 catches and 70 yards a game.
Yeah.
So if he can get on track and pull that out, that's one of those reasons that I like him in the playoffs. If you can trade for him now, he's got that easy playoff schedule, and if he can get it rolling with Cooper Rush, that might be advantageous to have on your bench.
I would agree.
Speaking of bench, I'm staying with DJ Moore, who should be on your bench. I mean, he's been in a slump. He hasn't topped 4 catches, 33 yards, or scored a touchdown in his last 4 games. I don't know what the new OC is going to bring, if that can change it up for him, but he does have a tough road ahead this week against Green Bay. They're ranked 11th against the pass. They're also expecting Jair Alexander and safety Evan Williams to return from injuries. So it's going to be tough sledding for DJ Moore. If you don't have a better option, just temper your expectations here as well.
Again, a great sit of the week, but again, it all goes back to the quarterback. How's Caleb Williams been playing the last month? He's been up and down, up and down. So when you have a rookie quarterback and when he's inconsistent, the people that suffer the most are the running backs and receivers. And DJ Moore is a perfect case. Justin Fields last year, had a great year. Caleb Williams, he goes in spurts. A couple weeks here early on, he had great weeks, and then now he's in a bit of a slump, as Blake said. So when you have these rookie quarterbacks, for the most part, you're going to have up and down fantasy stats from their receivers and running backs.
Yep. And Matt LaFleur is 10-0 against Chicago.
That's a crazy stat right there.
He's dominated. Not only is he 10-0 money line, he's 10-0 against the spread.
Wow. I did not know that either. That's interesting.
Little nugget for you.
That's hard to do. That's a rivalry too. I mean, that's not like your, run-of-the-mill NFL game. This is Packers Bears. These guys go back 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. That's an interesting stat.
It's another reason I don't like anything on Chicago's offense this week.
Oh, yeah.
New OC and going against LaFleur, who has game planned and schemed well against Chicago.
Agreed. Well, since we brought up George Kittle earlier, I'm going to go to the tight end starts of the week. I do have George Kittle starting. Now, this was obviously before I heard the news Blake just broke in terms of his status. So if he plays, I still think you start him. He's another Seahawks killer. His first outing against the Seahawks, he had a second best fantasy game in terms of points with 22. Obviously, injury could play a big factor in that this week, but if he is good to go and he gets the all clear, I still think he started with confidence against the Seahawks.
Yeah, we're firing up all 49ers that are starting.
No question. We're getting Jerry Rice, we're getting Roger Cray, we're getting them all. We're starting.
And so I'm going to start Tucker Kraft this week at tight end. Like I mentioned, LaFleur game plans well and schemes well against Chicago. Coming off their bye, maybe they have Jordan Love back at full health. And with Love at quarterback, Kraft has been a target hog. 22 targets or catches, 299 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Looks like the Bears are going to be without safety Jaquan Brisker again. He's been out with concussion since week 6. Since that time, they've allowed tight ends to have at least 4 catches and 69 yards in each game. I've got him projected at tight end 3 on the week with just over 13 points.
Solid. think that's a solid play.
I'm running him in DFS as well.
Of course you are. Why not, right? I'm
Now, my
surprised
sit,
for you. I'm surprised at your sit. This really surprises me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, my sit of the week, that's a hard one to sit, and I don't think you can. It's impossible, in fact. But it's Brock Bowers. And he's been on a tear this season. I think it's probably the second best rookie season ever, following just behind Laporta last year.
Yep.
And the Raiders don't have many weapons. But he is going up against the Dolphins defense, who is allowing on average just 6.2 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. That's number 5 against tight ends. So if they can scheme to stop Bowers, I mean, the Raiders don't have many other options. They've got a couple okay running backs, and they've got a third-tier wide receiver in Jacoby Myers.
At best.
So shut down the stud and let everyone else try and beat you.
Yeah, if you're not double teaming Brock Bowers at this point, if you're a defensive coordinator, you should not be a defensive coordinator. But again, lower your expectations. But I can see in terms of what the Dolphins do on defense, why you would want to temper your expectations in terms of production this week with Brock Bowers. Now, my sit of the week is just more of a gut. And again, it stems with the whole rookie quarterback thing. I am sitting Hunter Henry this week. And again, sound like a broken record over the past several minutes, but a rookie quarterback, you'll have inconsistency, and that spells a sit for Hunter Henry. The only Pat I would consider playing is Ramondre Stevenson and maybe the Patriots D. But again, as good as Drake May has been, he has been inconsistent, and he's made some throws that haven't been really good. So what that does is that trickles down to the offense. You don't know what receiver's getting the ball. You don't know if the tight end's getting the ball. So at that point, why take the frustration out? Just go ahead and sit Hunter Henry this week.
I like it.
Yeah.
He had a fairly good week last week, but in reality, Stevenson is the only safe play. I mean, I don't mind Drake May. I think May's just because of his ground game as well, offers a nice floor.
I agree.
But Hunter Henry is definitely risky.
Yep. Survivor time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I went easy. I haven't picked Detroit yet this year, so I'm going to go ahead and just say Detroit over Jacksonville. Lock it in. If you still have them left, let's just survive in advance, move on. They're at home against the bottom 3 pass defense. Mac Jones is starting, and it's not his first game. So let's just go ahead and put that one in there. Signed, sealed, delivered. Jacksonville lose.
Caution pick?
Yeah, my caution pick. Green Bay over Chicago. And I know I've talked about Matt LaFleur, 10-0, yada, yada, yada. But the game's in Chicago. It's a division matchup. Can a new OC revive the Bears offense? I've predicted crazier this year.
100%.
And been right.
200%.
Yeah. So caution picking Green Bay over Chicago. It is one of the higher popular picks this week in the Survivor world for those that are still in. Who knows what you have left? There are worse games to pick. This is just not a slam dunk, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with both picks. I think anytime you have a division game, rivalry game, I think it could always come down to a last play, field goal, whatever. I think it's going to be closer to what people think it always is. This is Green Bay and Chicago, but it's not like Green Bay has Aaron Rodgers before Aaron Rodgers was like the Chicago killer. And I think the Detroit game is a no-brainer. I would be shocked if this game wasn't a blowout. Now, my safe and my caution pick. First, my safe pick is Miami over Las Vegas. I know Miami. I haven't picked Miami all year. I don't believe. And Miami's coming off a big win on Monday night. So conventional wisdom would say big win Monday night. Jason, that kind of bucks maybe your rules a little bit. But they have Vegas coming in from obviously out west. And I think Miami with Tua back and Tyreek Hill starting to get some tread, and then Waddle doing well in Achane. I think they're just too much for the Vegas defense, and I expect the Miami to beat Las Vegas. It's probably a relatively close game, but I don't see how Vegas wins this game, especially with Gardner Minshew being back on the scene.
This was one of the ones that I eyed heavily as my caution pick. And it's not for any reason besides Miami has just not been consistent.
True.
And this is the most popular pick and the highest probability.
Oh, it is? See,
Yeah.
I did not know this. All right. We'll find out next week.
So
Yep.
I don't see how Las Vegas actually pulls out the win.
Yep.
But
You never know.
you never know.
You never, especially if you never know. I'm going to go to my caution pick. Now, Minnesota over Tennessee should be an easy win for the Vikes. But as Blake said, you never know. Vikings have struggled the last couple weeks, and the Titans usually play pretty well at home. So this one, I don't think it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Any given Sunday, Minnie over Tennessee or Minnesota over Tennessee seems like a slam dunk, but we will see. This one might be closer to what people think.
That's one that I actually overlooked as I was looking at the games this week. I was like, oh, yeah, lock. But Sam Darnold has not looked
No.
the best over the past couple of weeks.
You know what he's looked like?
Hmm.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Sam Darnold that's not going to get a contract extension.
No. JJ McCarthy, get healthy, quick.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Minnesota's not the team they were the opening 6 weeks.
No. And they've turned the ball over. To your point, he hasn't looked well. He's thrown some interceptions. I think they were riding high, and all of a sudden, again, all comes down to the quarterback play, and he hasn't been consistent. And when you don't have consistent quarterback play, you're just not going to win in NFL. And even if when you do, you might not win. Case in point, Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know. But this one's a sneaky one to keep an eye on.
It's a very good pick. I wish I would have done that. That's better than mine, I think.
Well, every once in a while, Blake, I get lucky.
Blind squirrel, baby.
Always.
I got a question for you, Jason.
What's up, buddy?
What's the best way to get your Sunday started right?
What's the best way to get your Friday night started
That's
off right? Yeah.
Currently, it's water, which is rare, but I haven't eaten dinner yet.
You sure that's water? That looks clear.
It was.
Oh yeah, well, you took that down, so it's definitely got to be water.
All
All right.
Sunday 6-pack.
Let's do it. Give me yours. Let's start with you first. You got some interesting picks.
2 in Pittsburgh, 1 in Houston, 1 in Detroit. So my 2 in Pittsburgh, the Russ to George Pickens connection. Russell Wilson over 219.5 passing yards on FanDuel. He's covered this in 2 of 3 games himself, but only one quarterback this entire season has not covered that 219.5 yards against the Ravens all season long, and that was Bo Nix. So what's that? 8 out of 9? 9 out of 10?
9 out of 10, yeah.
So
solid.
I think the odds are in your favor there, Mr. Russell Wilson. Staying in Pittsburgh, George Pickens on the over receiving line. BetMGM has him at 66.5 yards. In his 3 games with Russell Wilson, he's got 111, 74, and 91. And did you by chance happen to see what Jamar Chase did to the Ravens last week?
Woo, cut him up like a Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah. So 66.5 sounds like way too low of a lock for me.
Agreed.
Joe Mixon, over 86.5 rushing yards. Aside from week 2 when he got hurt, and week 10 last week when they decided they were going to stop using him against Detroit, Mixon's covered this line in every single game this season. I don't see why he wouldn't again this week. And then the bonus coming out of Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown, anytime touchdown score at plus 100 on DraftKings. I don't understand this one. The Jags have allowed an average of 1.9 passing touchdowns per game this year. Amon-Ra has scored in 7 straight. How is this plus 100? And this was before the news of
Laporta
being out. So
Oof.
that number might have gone down a bit at this point because the odds are going to get better that he's going to score a touchdown. But man, 7 in a row against the Jags,
Man,
and
I don't understand that. The only thing I can think of is they think they're going to run the ball a lot. That's be the only thing.
but the Jags' run defense is better than their pass defense.
I get what you're saying. I know.
Okay.
That's a yeah. If you got on Ron, fire him up clearly, and then obviously take him into a little bit of some betting action.
Little parlay, yeah.
Yeah. So I will give you my 6-pack this week, and it all comes from FanDuel. My first is Puka Nakua. He's back, and Matt Stanford is looking for him. Puka over 5.5 receptions this week against the Patriots. I know Patriots have a pretty good defense, but for some reason, Puka seems to find a way to get open and catch the ball against any team. So I don't think the Pats will have any luck keeping him under 5.5 receptions this week.
Even if he's going against Christian Gonzalez?
I thought about that and I was like, nope. He's for some reason he gets open. I've never, for a guy being in his second year, he seems to always be open. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. Like it's crazy to me. But
and Christian Gonzalez can't move with him. He's going to have to take a side because you got Cooper Kupp
exactly
on the other side.
And the one thing the Rams do is a lot of motion. I mean, they pay guys in motion more than any team in the NFL. All guys are always moving. So I think Puka over 5.5 this week against the Pats. Next one, Travis Kelce over 6.5 against the Bills. I think this game is going to be, I actually think this game may be a little bit of a high scoring game. I think they're going to have to maybe beat the Bills at their own game, Kansas City. So what that means Kelce gets involved. That means Kelce does his thing, just like he's done a lot of times against Buffalo. So I would expect the same thing. This may even happen. I would be surprised if he didn't have 4 or 5 catches in the first half minimum. So I think this is a lock at 6.5.
And then finally,
I'm back on the D train. I'm back on the Sonic and Knuckles train. I got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery anytime touchdowns against Jacksonville. Yep, more Sonic and Knuckles. So there you go. I am all on the Detroit backfield this week, Blake. No question.
There's going to be a lot of points scored by Detroit this week.
Ooh, it could get ugly. It get ugly. And then, yeah.
You want to be part of that offense.
Yeah, you do. You want in fantasy, you definitely want to be part of an offense. So my college bet this week, another big game in the SEC, playoff implications on the line. We got Tennessee facing Georgia, and the Bulldogs are 9.5-point favorites. They were 10.5. It's since gone down to 9.5, but I still think that's too much. Georgia lost to Ole Miss last week, and they need a win to stay in the playoff hunt. I think they get it, but not by the 9.5-point spread that Vegas has for this one. Tennessee has one of the best defenses in college football. I think they're ranked in the top 5, giving up 12.5 points a game. 9.5 is way too much. I think the Vols cover the spread, but the Bulldogs get the dub. And I just heard this today. Trevor Etienne, yes, Travis's brother, running back for Georgia, is out for this game. Also, side bet, take the under, 47.5 points.
Ooh.
There's a lot. That was a lot.
All right, there it is, folks. The Sunday 8-pack. Well, 7-pack with a Saturday sip.
It's a 6-pack with kind of a 2-pack.
That's right.
There you go.
I do have a fun fact for us, though.
Bring it on.
To wrap this up. Speaking of the Vikings and their quarterback play, the Vikings are the first team since 2006 to win a game with 0 touchdowns and 3 or more turnovers. Up to this point, teams with 0 touchdowns and 3 or more turnovers had lost 195 games in a row.
Wow. Where do you find this stuff? Every time I think you can't dig deeper, you dig deeper. That is a bizarre fact right there. Amazing.
195 in a row. What was the final score of that game? 12-7?
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we always appreciate the fun facts.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yes, let's do it.
If hopefully we're getting some traction on the YouTube machine. I was on there today deleting the other post. 7 subscribers.
7.
7. Let's
All right.
go.
Let's
Almost
go.
double
Let's do it.
digits.
We're getting there, Fanatics. We're getting there.
Come and follow us over there. Join in the conversation. Come over on Facebook. Follow us there. We're not as active as we'd like to be, but ask questions. We'll answer them. We see the posts. We see the DMs.
We do. We do. Well, Fanatics, that's a wrap for this episode of the Sunday Funday Guys Fantasy Football Podcast. And remember, Fanatics, to make this Sunday your fun day. Sunday Funday Guys out. I don't know what happened.
It's all good, man. You're going to have to go in and edit this.
Yeah.